What's up, everybody, and welcome to Marvel Chat University. My name is Drew. I'm your host, and I'm joined by Raul, who is our co-host here. What's up, Raul?
What's up, Drew? What's up, everybody?
And we're just kicking this thing off. We're going to try this out. This is our first time working together, so this should be fun. And so we're here to talk about all things Marvel in general. We may kind of drift off into other topics as well, but we try to keep it generally wrapped around the Marvel topics of the day. So with that, we're going to kick things off with talking about the new trailer that just dropped for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The new Disney Plus series is coming out on Disney Plus in like a month, I want to say. I don't remember the date, but I know that it looks like there's a week gap between the end of Wanda Vision and the beginning of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this dropped during the Super Bowl here this past weekend. The fated Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately, that didn't go, I don't think, the way anybody planned, to be honest.
No, that was did not go the way people thought. Mahomes, a young buck.
Well, he wasn't on the Buccaneers. No, he wasn't a buck.
Not a buck. A young guy in this sport and in his career in general, right? And I mean, this kid's been playing in his pocket and very comfortable with what he was doing. But then you're not on home field. You don't have the home field advantage. You're playing on their turf, the biggest game of the year. All that pressure, I think, just kind of got to him.
That's so weird too. That you talk about the pressure, and I think that the pressure of the offensive line of the Chiefs just being missing, and the D from Tampa Bay just running down that guy's throat. That's a lot of pressure. But then it's interesting for them to have had to deal with that home field advantage for the first time in the history of the sport. What a unique situation that turned out to be, for them to be a home game. Like, that's never happened before in the history.
The psychology behind that is just, it's really unfair to the Chiefs, because that crowd, I'm sure, was going insane. This is a weird time. The crowd is a minimized crowd compared to what it would have been, but still a pretty fucking large crowd compared to the rest of the season that they had so far, because a lot of the games were not at capacity, and so this was probably more people than they played in front of in about a year since the last time they were in the Super Bowl. So it was a mess. I think that if the referees from that game don't have their own Super Bowl ring, somebody fucked up somewhere, because that was a big part of it too. Calling a whole lot of plays against the Chiefs at the beginning of the game definitely gave Tampa Bay an edge, but I think the Chiefs gave it to them. They were very sloppy. They were dumb calls that didn't need to get called, but also the Chiefs didn't need to be in that situation. You're at the top of the game. You should be playing professionally. It was a big mess. It was definitely a big mess. But solidifies Tom Brady as a legendary athlete of magnitudinal proportions.
100%
going down history.
Like the word goat has been thrown around more times in the last week than probably during pagan sacrifice. Like the whole goat conversation is almost always has a bit of like a, well, is he really the, like, is Muhammad Ali really the greatest of all time, or what about like Mike Tyson? Is Roy Jones Jr. the greatest of all time, or what about, is Michael Jordan really the greatest of all time? But what about LeBron James? And so with this, I think it was one of the first times I've ever seen in any type of sport or event or competition where somebody, I don't think you can argue against it at this point. You can, like, what's your argument against this guy being the greatest of all time? Like, even if you have to qualify with it, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Okay, sure, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's still the most winningest major athlete, and they were saying it during the game, of all four sports. And I'm assuming they mean basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. I don't know what the fourth sport was. He kept saying four sports, and I was like, wait, what's the fourth sport? What do you mean? But let's just say in the United States, baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, or if you want to sub in soccer, whatever. Still think he's probably the most winningest player, even if you counted soccer instead. But they were saying he has the most winningest record of any athlete of all sports. It's just like, holy shit. That's crazy. Of all four sports. So.
For his age and everything, even the talent level. I mean, he played a clean game. He looked very clean during it. I mean, he looked professional. He looked like the Tom Brady you expected.
And he wasn't being like boisterous or crazy or whatever. And really, honestly, I didn't see him light up until the end of the game. And that was another thing that I was like, how is this happening?
That's what was scary.
Like, I felt like he was like, dude, why are you guys like pulling the game out from under this other team? I want to go toe to toe. I'm competitive. I want to hit him at my full strength.
He looked like he was playing in his pocket comfortably, and he had not very much pressure on him during the game until towards the very end, and he was like, you know what, I need to set this up and kind of like throw some cool stuff in there. Just he wasn't tested.
It's crazy. All right, so during the Super Bowl that we were just talking about for way too long, sorry about that. Seeing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer I posted on Facebook was like the best thing to come out of that game, sadly. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan. I like The Weeknd a lot, so his show during the halftime was pretty cool, but, who cares about
refreshing.
Gotta say, my knee-jerk reaction was that trailer was a little boring, to be honest. Like, I got the vibes. It definitely had a, like, this was during the big game vibe. So, like, the music and the like, upbeat nature of it was like, okay, cool. And although they did show... the agent, I believe, is what he's listed as, and that's John Walker or Johnny Walker, who he has taken on the moniker of Captain America at some point or another, or at least the outfit. I don't know if that necessarily made him Captain America, so to speak. I haven't seen a lot of the stories with him in it, but I know that that's what his character is supposed to be, and they showed him for the first time in that trailer, which is, I guess, a big deal, but nothing in that trailer felt like, oh shit, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It felt like, compared amongst other commercials and it being the first Super Bowl during a pandemic, Marvel was like, all right, let's make this interesting enough, throw Johnny Walker in there, give them something to go crazy about, and then keep everything pretty mundane. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and that's fine. Playing it safe was kind of the whole marketing campaign during this this game and during the weekend as a whole. And honestly, that was kind of true across the board. A lot of the messaging and stuff this year is to be expected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The whole hope thing. And
absolutely. What I did kind of enjoy, I think both actors who play those characters have great chemistry. And it's completely relatable and it's transparent in that commercial. It starts off and they're just kind of boys sitting in front of each other like, tense, but also this is fun. And it's probably a required meeting too. It's like HR sitting in front of them.
Yeah, and I love that. I love it. So that's true. The vibes of this. So this is the spot. If you haven't watched it at some point, or if you're listening to this in the future, you're like, what the fuck are they talking about? It's the one that starts with Falcon and the Winter Soldier basically sitting next to each other at what looks like some type of an interrogation, and then you realize it's some type of like HR mediation thing. That definitely feels like the equivalent of like a buddy cop scenario of them having to like work out their differences or whatever. And I love it. I love it because you're absolutely right. When it comes to the MCU, at least during the Infinity Saga, certain characters having certain levels of chemistry shown really hard because there was such a wide variety of characters throughout the entire saga. That was one of the only like real criticisms that I felt was substantiated with a lot of critiques of the movies, is you have too many people here.
Yes.
You don't have time to develop characters. And so when you do have characters that have charisma, like so Cap and Iron Man, obviously they can bounce off each other.
Oh, absolutely.
When you have like Clint and Black Widow, like Hawkeye and Black Widow really bounce off each other and communicate really well together. And I think that these guys, you saw seeds of it and didn't even realize it during Civil War with them like sitting in the back of that car and like watching Captain America make out with his ex-girlfriend's daughter for some reason, and then just being like, oh, and then the whole like, can you scoot your seat up? No, I can't. And they just like little snarky stuff that they had, I thought was cool.
Absolutely. Making these characters as humanly possible, that they're relatable, where they don't have to depend so much on acting or all the other little action CGI tricks that they're putting in there. Just making them human, making them relatable. Charisma and that humor is what's really carried these movies out there compared to maybe other movies that didn't do so great.
Sure.
Other failed attempts.
And Marvel really dabbles more in the lighthearted side of the comic aspect with their movies.
Yeah.
When you've got like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man versus, Aquaman was supposed to be more of like a funny movie. That movie sucks, dude. Like the tone of it is super all over the place. The comedy is tough. It's not fun. It's discount, bargain, basement candy that you're just like, this is not like, you go trick-or-treating and they throw Aquaman in there, like, Yay! You know what I mean? Whereas when you watch Ant-Man, the comedy in Ant-Man is fucking great. Like it's really on point. The timing is really good.
In those other movies where like you see that type of failure, it's the acting of Jason Momoa that really carries the movie because he's like such a huge icon.
I don't know how people keep fucking up with Jason Momoa. Like, how do you fuck up? I was just saying this recently. Like, I didn't watch C on Apple Plus. I've been thinking about doing it because I just got Apple Plus with like some bundle or whatever, and I'm thinking about watching it, but I haven't heard good things.
Same here.
And I'm like, how do you fuck up Jason Momoa? And I know there was like a whole other TV series that's on Netflix that I've been meaning to watch that stars Jason Momoa, and I'm like, this dude is awesome. And I haven't heard anybody say good things about any of these shows. Like he's great as Aquaman. He's fun and he's brooding and he's good at doing like the "are you fucking kidding me?" like look type situation.
His character's believable and it's natural and it's organic.
He's always put in like shitty movies though. I don't get it.
Everything around him is failing, so it's hard. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited for Falcon and the Winter Soldier solely based on how damn good Wanda Vision is. Like holy shit. So have you been watching WandaVision as it's been coming out, or did you just catch up on WandaVision?
No, I've been watching them week by week. Usually catch it on the weekend.
Okay, cool. I was curious if you are like behind, or like you had to play catch up, or what?
100% caught up. Gosh, like first, I will tell you this: that show, first episode, it was very hard for me to stay very engaged because of the feel, and not only that, but you got to remember. We haven't seen anything like this show, and what it's trying to
there's nothing like it.
Yeah, what it's trying to portray in a really long time. It's taking a 50 eras theme and bringing it to light in a modern way, and with a bigger story going on. And I will tell you this: the attention to the detail, the ability to be able to capture that world and us reminisce on what that world was gold. But because of us being desensitized to all of that and not finding the beauty in that stuff anymore, like we're so disconnected from it. It took me a little bit to catch on. Second episode, I was bought in. First episode was rough. Absolutely. Okay. I agree. First episode was really rough, and then after that, I was definitely caught in.
I think for me, the first episode hit some type of funny bone for me. My mom was a lot older, and so she grew up in the 40s and 50s. And so when I was a kid and like TV Land kind of came out and was like new, she was enthralled and was like, dude, you gotta watch this stuff. Like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Like Lucy, like I Love Lucy is on, and like, you know, Dick Van Dyke is on, and stuff like that. And so as a kid I watched that stuff, and so for some weird reason I have nostalgia for it, which makes no sense. I was born in the 80s.
No, it makes sense. The reason it makes sense is because I remember growing up, catching those shows late night. If you turn the TV on, that's what was playing, right?
Yeah.
But what did it for me in that first episode that gave me that nostalgia and that really warm feeling were the commercials.
Dude, I love that.
Beautifully crafted commercials thrown in. I was like,
so smart.
I was like, okay, that's very clever.
That attention to detail reminds me of why stuff like, I think Fallout works really well, because they have the like jingles and the little minor touches that remind you, that really put you in that moment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like if I'm watching, I don't know. So for example, this is a pretty good example of like that weird dichotomy of nostalgia and something new, but like the opening sequence to the movie Star Trek, the remake, or the, technically it's not a remake, but the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, the opening sequence that has, not the ship attack, fuck man, that makes me cry every time, but when they first introduce Kirk and he's stolen his stepdad's car and he's driving this like hot rod down the dirt road, listening to Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, which like, so this retro car with Sabotage from the 90s, and you're in the super future where they're building like this giant, it's such a weird mix of stuff. But as a kid from the 90s, I'm just like, oh my god, this is awesome. You know what I mean? It's got this like weird cool mix of stuff. I really liked the attention to detail aspect that you were talking about with just little stuff, the decorations around the house,
and as the show progressed, those attention to details are very important, because that's what sets up the premise that she's created this illusion, which wouldn't have been crafted as well if they did not capture that essence of that time era.
So let me ask you this: when you first heard about the show, the premise, did you so how much did you know before you saw the first episode? I'm curious about that.
I'll be honest, not too much.
Cool. Okay.
And I left it that way on
what
purpose.
Did you know? Did you just see pictures and
screenshots? So
and shit?
after, with the knowledge that I have on Marvel and knowing the Marvel Universe as it sits today and the way they're rolling out this expansive rollout of movies and shows and this huge
slate ahead, right?
Yeah, I mean, this really big project they had ahead of themselves. It's a lot to take in, even from our standpoint, sitting back and thinking like, oh my gosh, they have a lot of work to do. And are we going to sacrifice quality? Is it going to be great? And
I think that's always the question, right? Like, when is the shoe going to drop and like this starts sucking? Because so far it hasn't.
And that's the thing, right? So that's what I'm scared of, and that's why I don't want to set any expectations of what WandaVision should have been if I got deep into like what they were trying to shoot for. Yeah. And not only that, it's very important now with Disney Plus and the way they're doing this, because if you're watching the show, there are going to be things in the show that are going to make sense in the movies later.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, of course.
I just want to watch and get in. And with the movies, I will look into it a little further, but because it is a show and the way they're playing this, I kind of just want to go into it fresh. So nothing. I know nothing going in. So
compared to your expectations, and then we're past episode 5 at the recording of this episode, which means we're at like the over halfway point. There's I think there's technically 9 episodes planned, and so that episode 4 that broke from the formula was technically supposed to be like the mid-season finale type thing. So this is the beginning of the rest of the season. So up until the point where they finally actually pulled back the curtain and said like, here's what's going on. What did you think of the situation? What was your your suspicion so far? What were your like, oh, it's probably this, right?
I could tell that it was her alternate reality, right? Knowing that the horrible tragedy she went through in Endgame, losing Vision, and the specific set of skills that she has, I thought this lady is tortured. She is, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, she's torn to shreds.
She's extremely powerful.
What do? You create an alternate dimension to keep everything that you love near, because the world you truly live in has too much pain in it.
Now, I don't assume that your wife is ever going to hear that. Girlfriend, sorry, is ever going to hear this. Okay, wife, maybe in the future. I don't know. Whatever. I don't assume that your significant other is ever going to hear this. But you got to understand and admit, any guy understands a woman who is hurt or suffering or something like that. We already give women a lot of power. They already have a lot of power.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Or at least over us. I'm not saying, there's not some kind of like justice that's out there. But when you throw in there, this person has superpowers and she has been through hell. And she wants what she wants and she knows what she needs and she doesn't give a shit what anybody else thinks, because who the fuck else cares, right? That's how the character has been acting up until this point. Is like, no one else in the world cares about me. I'm alone. I lost my brother. I've lost my only family. Tony Stark fucking killed my family. Like, fuck everybody, right? That's been her narrative, and amazingly somehow her love for Vision grounded her enough to stick around and help with Infinity War and shit like that. But now with all of that gone, what does she have to anchor her? She has nothing to anchor her. And so she's trying to create anchors, right?
And absolutely. And the way that the last Marvel movie ended, Iron Man's death overshadowed the death of the 2 other important characters
so much
that it was actually really sad.
It was devastating, dude.
Tony Stark meant everything, and him dying was like a big deal.
Yeah.
Off to the side, you have Clint and you have Wanda, and they're just hugging each other.
Yeah.
Like mourning their losses.
Yeah.
And so even from a psychological standpoint of a female with that power in her situation, she's like, I understand death is important all the way around, but those 2 are really left to deal with their own devices. And at least Clinton has a family.
And their significant others didn't just die; they sacrificed themselves for this whole situation. So my question to you then, before I kind of like dig in it, because I had some ideas before all this, and most of them are kind of on point with what they're doing, but the way they're doing it in typical MCU fashion is like a weird vanilla twist on like what they're actually doing. It's like, here's Coke and then here's vanilla Coke, which is like a little different, but it's about the same, but it's got its own thing, and you're like, oh, this is a little different, but it's not like the spiciest thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? Pretty solid metaphor. I'm very proud of myself for that one. No, so my question to you is, A, have you ever read House of M, because that is the elephant in the room when it comes to the story here. There was a Wanda Vision or a Wanda and Vision comic series that I think led to House of M, but when it comes to the alternate reality aspect of this, have you read House of M, and how familiar are you with that story?
I'm not very familiar. I know that Wanda will appear in Doctor Strange's movie, where they're really going to delve into the multiverse of Madness.
Sure.
And it's going to kind of it's going to even deeper into this world, right? Of this ability to be able to jump to.
I believe they've also gone as so far as to say, and sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Yeah. I believe they even went as far as to say that in the Multiverse of Madness movie with Doctor Strange, she is the Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Up until this point, they even called out in the episode, does she have any kind of stupid code name or whatever? And they were like, no. And I'm like, that was really weird that they went to the point to say, like, does she have some kind of, like, superhero name? No, she's just Wanda Maximoff. Oh, okay, cool. As opposed to actually saying, well, we like to call her the Scarlet Witch. They had a moment there where they could have said something. They didn't.
From what I'm getting is that this is going to set up the introduction of mutants on a bigger scale.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
And then dig more and segue into that movie with Doctor Strange.
So what's cool about House of M versus how this is going? So what House of M is? So you have like some context, and then anybody listening to this, if you're a big Marvel person, you're already tuned out because you're like, these guys don't fucking know a thing, and that's cool. We don't claim to know anything at all. We are both students and teachers.
Absolutely.
We're the student teacher. No, but if you're not super familiar, if you're more familiar with the movies than you are the comics, House of M is one of the most legendary X-Men stories, period. It's up there with like Death of Superman and Captain America the Avengers Civil War series, in my opinion, as far as like level of impact it made on the Marvel universe. And the short story is, there was a story leading up to the House of M where Vision and Scarlet Witch basically got to have kids, live their life, like do what they're doing here, where they had like a family and it was cool, and she had twins, and yay, and it was Billy and Jimmy and Bimmy, or whatever the fuck her name is. Sorry, that's a Double Dragon reference. I love it. Bimmy and Jimmy. Anyways, so they had the twins and all the stuff, and then Mephisto, who is basically literally Satan in the comics of Marvel, revealed himself to be the orchestrator of this situation, and the children were his hands somehow, and they were just a figment of their imagination. They weren't real. She never actually had kids. It was a fucking illusion the whole time. Oh, yeah. And it broke her.
Oh yeah.
It completely broke her, and so mourning the loss of her and then somewhere in there Quicksilver died. Like somewhere, I don't remember how or why, but Quicksilver is her brother. Yeah. And in the comics, I don't know if you're aware of this, fucking Magneto is their dad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yes. I knew this. Yes.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the comics of House of M, it starts off with the House of Magnus is what House of M is supposed to stand for, and Magnus is now their last name. I don't know if that was how it was in the Magneto's last name was maybe Magnus. That would make sense to me. But House of Magnus, it starts off with like this family portrait image, and it is Wanda and her husband, or not Wanda and her brother. Vision's not involved in this for some reason. I don't remember why. But Wanda and her brother, Magneto, and then their twins are like children, like adult children that they're like 7 or 8, 9 years old, whatever fucking they exist. And so then you start seeing the typical characters that you'd see in a Marvel comics as Spider-Man, and everybody's around, but everything's a little off, and everybody is super happy, and like characters that are normally kind of taking a back seat are like in the spotlight. Characters that are usually in the spotlight are getting to live their like normal lives that they always pine for. Everybody's getting what they want. And then the one thing that starts, and you're like, this is different. Like, why is Captain Marvel all of a sudden the most famous person in the world? This is weird. Peter's with not Mary Jane. No, he is with, I think he's with Mary Jane. And that's supposed to be weird because I think maybe she's dead, or I don't remember what's going on. But then you realize something's wrong when Wolverine wakes up and he's like, the fuck is going on? And everybody's like, what? And he's like, what is happening? And everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, no, this isn't real. Like, this isn't real life. None of this is real. You want this
all the time.
So because of his mutant ability to heal or whatever, like, he knows that this is a false reality. So, and it's the whole world. It's not just this like little thing. It's the whole fucking world. She just lost her mind. And at the beginning of the comic series, Charles and Magneto are talking on for whatever fucking island. I remember where it's at. Wherever they are on whatever island that they have her kind of like hidden away. And Charles has been trying to work with her. And like the beginning of it, she's like playing with her kids, and he walks up to her, and this is like a mind thing. And he's like, stop it. And she's like, what? And he's like, your kids are dead. Fucking stop it. You don't have kids. And she's like, she like loses her shit. So then Quicksilver comes and talks to her. I didn't realize this when I was reading the comic because I didn't know what led up to it when I first read it. Quicksilver is fucking dead. So she's imagining her brother coming and talking to her, and he's like, you know what you have to do because you can change all this. And so she does. And she brings him back from the dead. And the big thing for me reading it is when she did that, she killed Xavier. Like, he was gone. He was like the whole, like when Wolverine does what he does, and he moves the plot along. He runs around and like snaps people out of it, and then he finds other people who have other abilities that are like counteracting this, and they're like, this is fucking weird. Like, they're like the underground or whatever. Like Luke Cage is out there and stuff, and it's really, 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 really good. And so through that whole thing, they finally amass this group. They attack, and they're like fucking snap out of it. And I don't remember how it all happens. But she gets so upset that she just obliterates all of mutant kind. She literally says the words. The big deal is no more mutants. She says no more mutants at the end, and all but 200 mutants are either lose their powers or die.
Wow.
Worldwide. It's like mass genocide of like an entire race of people. And so like the fallout of this is bad. Yeah. And I believe this leads to civil war in some way, because the Civil War is about mutant registration.
Yeah.
So House of M is a hugely important storyline. So when we talk about how big Infinity War was, the implications of this TV series, granted, this is on a much smaller scale. I personally don't think they take this and blow it out to be the thing.
Yeah.
But for Wanda to be the big bad in phase 5, or phase 4? We're in phase 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So in phase 4, for Wanda to be the big bad, I think would make sense. I don't know if necessarily that's what's going on here, because so this is why I did all this. There's a lot of implications, and I've watched a lot of like conspiracy theory, like this is our theory, this is what we think's going on. There's a lot of implications that Agnes, her friend, is actually what the fuck is her name? Agatha Harkness, and she's a witch from the comics. And she wears stuff and she looks a certain way that everybody's like, that's totally Agnes. And she's like, witch. So we haven't seen the Halloween scene yet. Okay. I'm sure that's coming up, but we see, in the trailers and all the ads and stuff, the Halloween stuff is funny because they dress up in their traditional outfits.
Is she a mutant?
And she's a witch. She's not a mutant. She's a witch. Like
witch.
real,
okay.
real ass fucking
horror witch.
Like magic
okay.
witch. Yeah. And so, Agatha works for Mephisto in the comics. And so a lot of people think that Mephisto is making this happen. Personally, I don't know if Mephisto is really part of this.
I wouldn't think so.
A lot of people also think that Quicksilver showing up may be Mephisto. He may have showed up pretending to be her brother. So that's also a thing that's like conspiracy theories. But what I think might be happening, because up until this past episode, I really did think that, okay, she had a break, she stole his body, and she's just playing house. Yeah. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, like, thousands of people are suffering for it. Like, that's what I thought the whole thing was. And with Sword kind of being teased early on, they were like, is Sword doing this? And I was like, no, I don't think Sword's doing this. And now we know that Sword's not doing it.
Which, as I found out here not too long ago, that was foreshadowed in the very end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Because as Fury is talking to Spider-Man, in the background there's a hexagon that's on the same screen as the hexagon in the show.
Here's what's weird about the hexagon thing. Hexagons So sword is its own thing.
Yes.
And the sword logos and all that stuff in the early on episodes were cool teases, and then we were like, oh, this is what sword has to do here. That's why they're mentioned or whatever. Hexagons, at least from my experience, and I've experienced this in like some of the mobile games and else, like AIM. So AIM is Advanced Idea Mechanics, and it's usually a nefarious organization, a lot of times led by, I can't remember who. I want to say that at some point, the dude that plays or winds up being the Goblin every now and then in the Spider-Man movies, I can't remember his, or the Spider-Man comics, I can't remember his fucking name. Harry Osborn. I want to say that Osborn at some point was involved with AIM, and maybe I'm thinking of that because of his involvement in Civil War and being kind of like an asshole in Civil War. But AIM, their logo is a hexagon. It's a straight up fucking hexagon. And so everyone seeing hexagons is like, is AIM making this happen?
Okay.
And what's funny is the AIM, the like beekeeper suit that guy shows up in, like their uniforms are like beekeeper looking ass uniforms. And I don't know, man, it's weird. It's weird. So I'm waiting for AIM to somehow be implicated somehow.
Well, let me ask you this. Mutants as we know it in the specific canon that we're in
are non-existent.
Non-existent, correct?
Okay,
so the snap is what created the mutants. That's what I'm thinking. That's what they're going to go with.
I think that's a good scapegoat. Yeah, because it's like, honestly, I feel like post-snap MCU is such a fertile, lush storytelling thing.
Yeah. So
references to so Far From Home, groups and stuff like that, and then in Endgame when they hold groups for people who've been infected by the snap, social work and all that involved in the snap, like just the worldwide implications, I think is really, really fucking fascinating.
Yes.
Especially living through a pandemic right now, and then knowing that there's going to be a post-pandemic universe and all that stuff in our real world, and like the duality there, I think is really interesting. But I think using the snap, dude, I'm not gonna lie, was really excited when they were like, yeah, Mephisto came from another universe because of the snapping button. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. And then when they called bullshit on that, I was like, oh, that is the best fake out I've ever heard. But for that to be the soft push of like, hey guys, multiverses are a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the casual watcher to be like, oh, cool. And then for them to be like, that's bullshit. And I was like, oh damn, they're not doing it. And then to know that the multiverse of madness is what Doctor Strange is called, and just like, what am I thinking? Of course they've already introduced multiverses. That's already a concept.
That ability.
And Loki is going to be this multiverse traversing thing. So I think that you're absolutely right that Snap is a good excuse to introduce mutants, and I've been wondering about that. So with Monica Rambeau, so her character has been known by a lot of things, but they are setting her up basically to be Photon. They name dropped that because her mom's call sign was Photon.
Yes.
In the thing. So I think they're definitely setting her up to be Photon. She has held the title of Captain Marvel before. Like she could technically be that level of a powerful person.
Okay.
So the rumor, like one of the theories that I saw in one of the like theory videos I was watching was when she dodged the blood test and all that stuff, they were like, and for her like scan to just be like blank or whatever is because she's emitting so much power. Is that some videos that I watched, they were like, she knows that she has powers. And
following the theory that after the snap is when she received these things.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Well, all right. So when she was talking to her friend, her mom's friend, who is now the head of SWORD, who is already kind of softly set up to be some kind of antagonist in a way, where he's like, I don't care, fucking terrorists, and everybody's like, oh no, but why? And I'm like, no, but really, like, wait, yeah, he's well within his rights as some normal ass dude to be like, what the fuck about her? Like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I get the like, no, but she's our friend. Yeah, she was for like a minute. But come on, like she was a bad guy at first, and she's also a like traumatized human being. You don't know what the fuck. Like we're all buddies, and then I like have a psychotic snap, and if I have a gun in my hand, you're gonna be like, dude, Drew, you need to put the fucking gun down, bro. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? We're best friends. And you're like, yeah, but you're crazy. So she was talking to her friend, who is the head of SWORD now, and they were talking about the SWORD acronym, and she said because they changed it. It used to be space weapon observation, research, and development or something like that, but it's sentient weapon and so like they changed that for the show. And so to point out they're observing and checking like what's the fuck's going on here with Wanda. The interesting thing is she said, I noticed it doesn't say creation. So creating sentient weapons and this organization was something that her mom created. So was her mom like in the MCU lore, like making her into a sentient weapon of some sort? And then there's also this like this little moment where they were talking about how she got somebody said that she got yeeted across the fucking I was like, hell yeah, she did. I love that. She got yeeted out of the whole hex. For that to not have like hurt her. She got like blown through buildings and shit.
She just blinked her eyes.
And she said, she was like, oh, that's because she was protecting me. I think she said that way to divert anybody from going like, wait a minute, how are you not fucking dead right now? You know, I maybe that's part of it. Maybe she knows. So they were also talking about, we were trying to pinpoint, and I don't know if you're aware of like where we are in the timeline.
No, yes, we are, because and that's the thing, right? Keeping up with the timeline, but we are. What is it? I know 5 years after the snap.
The first snap. Yeah.
What is it? 7 or 8 years?
7
or 8 years that we're ahead, or is it more than that?
From the first snap?
Yes.
I want to say we're like 8 years from the first snap, but we're about a month, not even a month after everyone coming back, because she comes back, and then I want to say that they like alluded to it being like 3 or 4 weeks.
7 or 8 years.
From snap to snap?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I want to say it was maybe 5 years.
Yeah, but a good
5 to 8 years, somewhere in there. But the important part is, I believe we're only about a few weeks after her coming back. So Monica comes back in the hospital, and then she finds out her mom's dead. Fast forward some bit. So like what happened during the fast forward some bit? You know what I mean? Because I'm sure that she learned that her homie that she hasn't seen since like the 90s came and fucked up Thanos. You know what I mean? Like, she had to have heard about that. And so a lot of the assumption of why she keeps ducking references to Captain Marvel is because she holds Carol responsible for her mother's death, because her mom died of cancer. And it's like, well, did she get the cancer from being around this Kree supernova warrior or whatever? But I don't know if that's fair, because she clearly died 30, 40 years later. So it's like, even if she did get cancer, like if I got cancer from a guy I knew when I was like in my 20s and I died when I'm like 60 or 80 or whatever, I mean, fair play. You know, that's whatever. Upset, if it was 5 years later, whatever. No, that's bullshit. But like, I don't know if that's, I kind of call bullshit on that. But I think that they're definitely estranged, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it could also be the fact that she hasn't really had a very long time to digest these new powers. Because I really think that after the snap is when she started developing.
I think you might be right.
She's learning to live with this and what it could be, or what is she supposed to share with somebody. And you're right, she's been estranged from her best friend now for a little bit. She hasn't been able to have a conversation with her, be able to deal with the whole situation. So
now,
interesting.
In the MCU, they're not like super tight. They met each other and they got to know each other and stuff, and they helped each other. And there's obviously like this debt of gratitude to Captain Marvel and stuff, but they're not like, so she was a kid, she was the little girl in the Captain Marvel movie, so now she's an adult. Okay, so there is a little bit of like, at least in the movie timeline, there's probably a bit of like, because she clearly idolized Captain Marvel in the short time that you see her in the movie and see them interact and all that jazz. But for her to have been away for so long, I think maybe there is some type.
She was just a child. I mean, that was her best buddy, but then some came back and you meet her. And she's trying to, and she's like, "Oh, I love you," and then she's gone again. And absolutely.
They've done enough in the show to at least develop some type of like, what's this all about? Yeah, and I don't think they're doing it for no reason. You know what I mean?
It's one of my and what episode was it where it was Vision is the magician? What episode was that?
That's the second episode.
Second episode.
Yeah.
me being a fanboy of magic, a magician myself.
Yeah.
When I saw that and the way they crafted that was so beautiful and hilarious, and that's when I jumped on board. That was it's incredible.
I couldn't agree more with that kind of taking the whole, because in the early episodes, it's very much akin to how the shows were shot, where it's very like you're in this tight space. For that to be outside on this stage and there's like kind of wider shots in that, I thought that was really cool. But I do think it's interesting in retrospect, some of the ways that those people were talking.
Yes.
And so for her, when you go back and rewatch those episodes, which I haven't done yet, but when I think back to some of the sequences in context of Wanda's in control of all this.
And so that's my next question.
Because there's that dynamic with the fucking Stepford wife type woman who's intimidating her.
Vision's dead. She steals the body. She's just reanimating him. And for her to have specific dialogue where Vision is starting to become coherent of a few things, confused about a few things, I'm like, are the other people like, hey, you're mind control them?
But how would
how are you doing that with Vision? What are you doing with Vision specifically that he's having now? Like, is his soul back? Like, what's going on? Because other people are living creatures.
Yeah.
And Vision's gone.
But what's up with the Stepford wife thing where, like, there's this really tense moment where the woman is, like, calling her out and talking shit to her and intimidating her. And I'm like, so is she controlling this?
I feel like up to a point.
So I think
there's an internal battle with one of those human beings in there.
So it's possible that Agnes may be pulling Wanda's strings, so Wanda's making it happen, but I wonder if Agnes is manipulating Wanda into making this happen. So there's a couple key moments 100%.
There. Where want me to take that from the top?
That was a pretty good fourth wall break.
Even if she is doing that, for her to look at her specifically and say, "You want me to take that from the top?"
You want me to take that again?
She's like, "I know what's going on. Let me play your show."
And then for Wanda to be like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
And she has been like, "I don't know what you're talking about" to everyone.
Yes.
So,
but Agnes calls it straight in her face.
I put this on Twitter. There's a couple things here that I think the show is misleading us on purpose. Well, of course the show is misleading. But there are some moments where I felt like I think the show is misleading us on purpose, and here's why. So, Agnes kills the dog for some reason. And then when they're like, bring the dog back to life, she says, "Can you do that?" Almost like, because if you can do that, I want you to do that right fucking now because I need you to do that.
Absolutely.
So there's a couple dumb, silly little things that I keep thinking about. Agnes keeps talking about her husband. We've never seen her husband. He's the only character we haven't seen that keeps getting referenced all the time. It is a pretty good, funny little trope of like, my that husband. We've never seen him.
Yes.
So there's that. The dog dies, which is a nod to the comics. They had a Sparky dog and he died, blah, blah, blah. But the dog dies, and she's the one that finds him, and she says, "Oh, you can do that."
And so it goes back to is she the witch, or is she just figured out the game, but now she's like, "Wait, can you bring somebody back to life? Because I'd love for you to bring my husband back to life."
Right, and it's so well. I wonder if she's manipulated Wanda into retrieving Vision and reanimating him. Now he's an android. He's not a living thing, so it's not the same as bringing a dog back to life.
Correct.
I can reboot a machine, so that's not quite the same. So, and if they were holding Vision's body, it stands to reason that if they did download his consciousness before the snap and everything, then they have him. Yeah, and so they can
just put Jarvis back
there's
in.
Backups and blah blah blah.
Yeah, put Jarvis back in this machine now, like trying to figure out what
you could do the whole C-3PO thing of like, hey, we wiped his memory, but he's still the same guy. Now he just needs to remember everything all over again. But so for her to, I wonder if she's manipulated Wanda to make this happen, to see if Wanda can learn how to do this, so that then she can use Wanda to bring back her husband, Mephisto from death, maybe? I don't know. They could blur the lines that way.
Stay away from falling down that path that you're going down, but it's hard, right? Like, you don't know.
You know, and so the children aging themselves up, that's the other thing that I think is super fucking weird here, is Wanda didn't make herself have kids. She realized she was pregnant. So I like, The big question is, how much is Wanda in control of and knowingly in control of, and
who else
how
is
much
pulling
of
the
this
strings?
is not in her control, but is happening around her, and then she reacts to it? Because, like, just little dumb shit, like Vision eating gum and then being all boo, 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 boo.
Yeah.
Like, she could have been like, oh, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. Let me get that out of there.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? She wasn't aware of everything the whole time. She doesn't know what's going on at all times.
And to her credit, she may just be trying to control so much that things are slipping through the cracks normally. But
sure. That's an easy, comb over, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's
absolutely.
true or not.
No, it's too simple for that to be the response. Who's pulling the strings?
Here's my twist. There's two things that people pointed out that was like, oh, like father, like daughter, because Wanda did this move that Magneto literally does in the movies when he's walking away and he points everybody's guns at each other, and he does this like flip of his hand, and she does it almost shot for shot, like frame for frame.
Okay, I missed that.
When she walks out with the drone and gets all the dudes to point the guns at that guy, the way she walks away and does this is almost shot for shot. I think that's a nod. I don't think that was Wanda. I think that was Agnes looking like Wanda. I just feel, and here's why. So
I want Mephisto to be Magneto instead. I want it to be Magneto pulling some sort of strings.
I mean, sure.
With another mutant.
Who knows, right?
Yeah. Trying to get her to snap out of it.
But the other thing about her walking out of there, and the thing that struck me as odd, but everybody, like all the fanboys and everybody, like all the internet fear around this was like, oh shit, her accent came back.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would her accent come back? What? Why would it come back? It's not going to come back. It doesn't just come back out of nowhere. So when she used her accent, I don't think that was her.
But why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't she just come back saying?
Because she's
taking a break from her show.
Accent like went away.
No, because she's doing this show, right? This false reality.
Sure.
Now she's walking out like, stop interfering with my game.
And her inconsistent accent has kind of been like a subplot joke throughout the series since Age of Ultron. You know what I mean? It like started really thick and dumb, and then kind of went away altogether. In Endgame or in Infinity War, when her and excuse me, damn. Her and Vision are talking in, what is it, like Munich or whatever. Mm-hmm. She was like, guys, come on, I want to go. Let's go. And you're just like, where the fuck is any of her accent? I just think it's interesting that when she walks out of there, her clothes change back to literally the clothes that she was wearing in Endgame, which makes sense, I guess, timeline-wise.
Because that's what she walked in to pick up Vision's body from at the facility.
But she could be wearing whatever the fuck she wanted.
Absolutely.
And it is what she was wearing. And so that was my other thought. She didn't get Vision's body.
Oh, man.
Someone else did. And here's the thing. The MCU likes to, much like comics do, reuse their own gigs and then be like, ha, gotcha again. You know what I mean? And like they're critiqued a lot for this.
Yeah.
A lot of the end guy is the bad guy who has the same powers as the main guy, or like the bad guy that we think is the bad guy is not actually a bad guy. The good guy turns out to be the bad guy, and at the end, it's sky beams and blah blah blah. Like they have a lot of the same shit that happens over and over again. So in Civil War, when we all think that Bucky somehow killed Black Panther's dad, and we're like, no way, and then you're like, oh no, that totally wasn't Bucky, it was Baron Zemo dressed up as Bucky. Blah. The fucking scratchy little black and white camera stuff of Wanda coming in and breaking in and stealing Vision's body, why would we think that she would do that? Maybe she didn't fucking do that. Maybe somebody else is making all this happen, and she is just as clueless about this as Vision is. And so at the end, instead of this heel turn that everybody's expecting Scarlet Witch to do, it actually turns out it's somebody else, and it's fucking Agnes.
Interesting.
That's what I think.
Interesting. I keep on hearing they want to introduce Magneto in some way. We saw...
and like, I gotta make this happen.
I know, and I'm going down because I want to see...
Is this the Quicksilver thing? Let's talk about that.
So that's what I was going to bring up. So Quicksilver coming in, and then, funny enough, but saying she's even... They make that... a funny moment in the show where they say we recast yeah, absolutely,
dude. That's so. When she said that, I was like, oh,
exactly.
Sweet. They acknowledged it face like head on, so they didn't even have to be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So now we're bringing in this character that we know from a previous couple movies.
He's Quicksilver from fucking Days of Future Past, and I didn't see anything after that because that movie was good and everything after sucked.
Now let me ask you this: do you remember when they first introduced that character in his specific timeline, in his canon? Did they talk about siblings?
So What? So they allude to his dad being a like out of the picture deadbeat dad,
Yeah.
and then I believe in the movies they established that Magneto was his dad.
Correct. No, and I got that. But did they mention siblings at all in that?
I don't think so.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think so.
So that's why
Because they couldn't. They didn't have because she was such a big part at that point. They couldn't be like,
Yeah.
you know, because like when they introduced Quicksilver, I don't even think it was this. I think it was the same year. Like I think Age of Ultron and Days of Future Past were the same fucking year, and so people were literally comparing the like Quicksilver's scenes back to back in the same year, or like within about a year.
I just want to say we did keep the best one. I love that actor. Evan Peters is phenomenal.
He's fun.
Phenomenal. And he's fun.
They wrote his character really, really fun. But what's funny is Quicksilver, at least in the little bit that I've read from the comics, because I haven't read a whole lot, is not fun. He's not a fun guy. He's kind of an asshole. So like the one that we saw in Age of Ultron was probably a little more spot on. But
now let me ask you this: what do you think that impact he's going to have? Because it's for me, there's like, okay, he's recast, we get it. It's Marvel's power play just to say, yeah, deal with it. But does that open up for a possibility of introduction of more mutants, or maybe foreshadowing a different theory of like who's really pulling the strings?
Well, so when they talk about where Wanda got her powers, she clearly got her powers from the
experiments, right?
With the Tesseract.
Yes.
With the Space Stone? What the fuck is the Tesseract? Yeah, Space Stone. Because it fucking like warps. That's what Loki used to like just bounce out of that fucking multiverse.
Yes.
So they were experimenting with the Tesseract, and that's how she got her powers. Now, what's weird to me about that is I appreciate the color-coded power system that the MCU has introduced. So when she does her it's red because she's altering reality, because that's the reality stone, which I don't think she ever came in contact with, which I think is weird. I'm like, how the fuck did she get reality stone's powers from the Tesseract, which is technically the Space Stone? Whatever, who cares? But his powers, they didn't really define as much. They didn't do a good job of being like, he got super fast speed because shut up, go away, he's Quicksilver. You know, they didn't really do a good job of like digging into that, and then they just killed that character like that.
It was like purposeful, like we're not going to give you very much, he's going to be dead here soon.
But for him to have died in that movie, and then they go like, and just moved on. They didn't have a fucking funeral. They didn't talk about what happened to Quicksilver's body. Did Hydra get a hold of it? You know, what I mean, at the time it was S.H.I.E.L.D. It was before Hydra revealed himself. So did S.H.I.E.L.D. get a hold of his body? Wouldn't his body be interesting? Is he a mutant? Is she a mutant? What the fuck? You know what I mean? Because before that, I'm pretty sure they were just normal ass kids.
Yeah.
And they were found and they were brainwashed because they talk about their city was attacked, and it was hit by a bunch of Stark Industries weaponry, and they were trapped in a room with a Stark Industries bomb for like 2 days, just waiting for it to explode and kill them.
Now this is where the Magneto piece comes back into it, because the only person who could save them or shield them from that could have been Magneto.
Sure. And I think that for Strucker and the people involved from Hydra that like made them happen, there's a lot of like yada yada yada-ing in Age of Ultron with those characters that they can totally go back and be like, well, turns out because of playing with the Tesseract, which is the Space Stone, which technically can lead to hopping between multiverses, clearly, apparently, because of the Loki show that we got to talk about at some point, because fuck, that show's gonna be nuts. Owen Wilson's in it.
I know.
Yeah, what the fuck?
I just saw Pop up on another show. It's crazy.
Famous again. So he was never not famous. So you could hypothetically be like, well, he died, but maybe he didn't die, or in the time it took him to like run in front of that, what you didn't know was that he actually tapped into the Tesseract powers of his powers, and he ran to another fucking alternate dimension or whatever. Like, who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? So, but I definitely think that having that actor and using that character is on purpose, obviously.
Correct.
It's not just a, isn't this neat?
Now, let me ask you this. Leading up to the show, as you heard some of the rumors that, we're going to have and it's not comparable.
Talking about Spider-Man?
No. Like with Mandalorian, right? And Skywalker coming in at the very end. They were expecting they were not with a big reveal. Did you think that this character was going to be the character that came to the show? Or you thought something different?
I didn't see him coming at all. I was expecting Doctor Strange to just pop in at the literally end of the season. And then that is like to hold your breath until the Doctor Strange movie comes out. Meanwhile, let's go watch Captain America and blah, blah, I read about that. That quote was taken out of context, unfortunately. So they asked, because that had just happened, that season finale had happened like a week or two before this interview. They asked, is there a Skywalker level cameo coming up? And she said, we have some fun things coming up or whatever. Like, she didn't say absolutely, or she didn't. They prompted her. They were like, is there a Skywalker? She didn't go like, there's totally a Skywalker level. Like, fuck that show. Like they didn't. She didn't go that route. And I was wondering about that. And I was actually going to ask you that earlier. Do you think other characters will pop up? So far, we have seen everybody that has been confirmed to be in the show, and then the rumors of him being in the show were pretty early on because they kept mentioning him, that people were like, is fucking Pietro going to be in this? Right now, I haven't heard anything of like, oh, what if Captain Marvel pops by or whatever? Like what if she pops by for a scene? Sort of
Agnes reveal plus another humongous character that we are not familiar with. Which we
are
familiar with, but that's going to be introduced as part of the show funding.
I think the red,
like some sort of mutant. I feel like there's some sort of mutant coming down.
I think the red herring is, oh my god, she's gonna turn into Scarlet Witch, and then Vision's gonna have to like fight her or whatever. But I think the reality is there is a big bad that hasn't been revealed yet, and much like heralding Galactus coming, Agnes is like the, hey, I'm here from Mephisto.
And let me ask you this: so like after this is all said and done, why couldn't Vision just
alive?
Come back as a robot?
Was just about to ask you. I was like, do you think Vision survives this series?
I do think so, because if you have the power to recreate him this way, and I think that's just all for show, the stone, right? Obviously, it has to be. So if he's just now added back into the mix,
I've been meaning to bring that up. When you look at the stone throughout the entire show, it is not the reality stone, or it's not the Mind Stone.
It's just as a
it's like a sticker. It's like a fucking, bullshit, like little plastic, Cracker Jack version.
And so what implications does that have, having him back on the team? That's huge. Knowing him without the worry of losing that. Now he's just an actual character that doesn't have this huge tie to the fate.
Well, you talked about the grounded realness of Falcon the Winter Soldier. I think what's really interesting about Falcon the Winter Soldier is neither of them are some type of like supernatural being.
No.
Winter Soldier is definitely, he's got the super soldier serum. He's survived longer than he should. He's very, very, very strong. But much like Captain America, he has his limits. You know what I mean? And Captain America has his limits as much as they stretched him into Rubber Band Man.
He's just got so much passion.
He's just got all the heart.
He's the passion.
Yeah. Which was his superpower before they injected him with the stuff. He can do this all day, and that's like his character. And I think Winter Soldier's got his unique characteristics. However, what I think is interesting about all of this is, with the exception of the Sorcerer Supreme, so Quesadilla Supreme. No, I'm just kidding. The Doctor Strange aspect of things, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, and let me get some Verizon thinking here. Beyond those two characters, there really isn't anybody, at least that springs to mind right this second, that is like, okay, so Thor. Thank you. I would, like, in my head, I was like, dude, there's someone else and you're missing, and you're a fucking idiot for not reason. So Thor, Captain Marvel, and Doctor Strange. The Hulk is still the Hulk, but he's not quite like unpredictable Hulk, so he's still out there in a way, but he's not like a threat, if that makes sense, because Bruce has come to terms with this Hulk.
Absolutely.
Now, something's got to happen to undo that. That would be really cool. But those three characters, if you keep them off the board, this is just like really ripped ass people going to town. And so it is a flat playing field. and I think it allows for you to be able to tell stories like Black Widow and Hawkeye. Hawkeye's got a TV series coming up, and so those are much more grounded situations. And I wonder if this show exists in a way to keep these characters off the board. And I think that's really important for this type of storytelling. When you look at huge events, for example, the Proto event, in my opinion, at least in my era here, because I'm not talking... look, dude, guys, listen. My comic book series knowledge does not date back to like 1962, so I don't I know that there's stuff back there, but my personal experience, the death of Superman is probably the best example of, well, how the fuck are we going to handle this? And the way that they did a good job of that is Doomsday comes in and wrecks all of the relevant characters.
Yeah.
And so in the comic books, they were like the least relevant character, but at the time they were relevant. I actually rewatched the cartoon recently, the one from like 2018, and instead of just wrecking like Spinball or whatever fucking shitty ass 90s Justice League characters, he comes in and wrecks Green Lantern, he wrecks Aquaman, he wrecks Wonder Woman, he wrecks Batman, like within a few minutes fucking literally lays them out within a few minutes to set the stakes so high that only Superman can handle this. Okay. So let's think of the reverse of that. Let's think of the thing that is so threatening. Why is it threatening? Well, it's threatening because the only people that we could have to handle this aren't here right now. Yeah. And that's what happens in Marvel when you look at Civil War. Thor wasn't there. Nope. He was like, fuck y'all. Y'all are handling this stupidly. I'm out. And in the movies, Thor wasn't there because he was in fucking doing Ragnarok with Hulk, who is the other big guy in the room of like, well, Hulk could just fix this. So I think it's really cool how well they handle laying these people out or like moving them off the board so that you have a big bad that is like an overwhelming odd that you have to put a lot of people against. So Kevin Feige has already announced that there will not be an Avengers big like team up movie this phase. So I think this phase technically, well, not this phase. Well, I don't know if
it's a wrap up of phase 4.
I think this phase technically ends with the Eternals, maybe. But if it's not the Eternals, it's something else that's like not related. I get a little blurry on where the phases are because they don't exactly lay them out immediately. No. But looking at the future, like they're introducing, like a lot of this is setup. You know, this phase is a lot of setup. So you don't have that like capstone event. So I think Multiverse of Madness, having Scarlet Witch in it, addresses whatever the fuck happens after this. Personally, to mirror the House of M situation, or what led into House of M, she lost everybody. She lost Pietro, she lost her kids and stuff. She's already lost Pietro. Yeah. So I think him coming back is a ruse. And so I think you have to lose him. And to lose him, that's got to hurt. You have to do something to really fuck her up. You're going to lose these two kids who are characters. They lived lives. They were like young Avengers. There are mutants. They have like character names and all this stuff. And then it all turned out to be fake.
So no. With the Multiverse of Madness, could you see Pietro, this version, snapping out of it once it's all said and done? He's like, "What's going on? Where am I?" And then he's like, "I'm Quicksilver, but in a different."
I don't know.
Multiverse.
See, so the question is Scarlet Witch the bad guy in Multiverse of Madness? Because so like with what's going on right now,
one of the quick little bats to conquer and then make her part of the team to fight off that overwhelming huge problem that's on the horizon.
So the Batman versus Superman thing, right? Where you're like, oh, we're against each other, but we're really not. No. And now we're not. And now we're gonna fight Steppenwolf's lame ass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Total fail at
or the same year, the fucking. Oh no, Optimus Prime's bad guy. The same year, oh no, Vin Diesel's against everybody somehow in Fast and Furious. Like, I hope they don't do that, to be honest, because I think that that's such a lame use of a character. If you're gonna make him mad, make him bad.
I think they could craft it well where she's a huge threat, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, but we get over that, and then it lays foundation to this tremendously huge big bad.
But if they do that,
call in the power play.
In typical good guy fashion, she can't be as powerful as she can be if she's on the good guy side, because then she's overwhelmingly powerful and she can just snap the shit away. Yeah. You know what I mean? So what happens? Does she depower? Does she depower herself on accident? No more mutant style? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But what I think is fascinating is for the Multiverse of Madness movie to be the one that has her in it. And so the question is she the bad guy in the movie, or at least the setup bad guy? I totally see what you're saying. And if she is it because of what happens here? Like, there can't be a yada, yada, yada between the end of this season and into the movie. There's got to be, like, a direct correlation. And so I am hoping that Steven shows up at the end and he's like, this shit is crazy. None of these humans in their fucking just organization. Yeah, and just like, nope, I'm taking you. We're going the fuck over here. I'm taking you to the, what's it called? The mirror dimension. And like, I'm getting you the fuck out of here because you're about to blow this shit up.
That would be the best way to handle that.
One of the things that people pointed out, and I thought was like one of the most obvious things in the world, but I love watching, I was watching a YouTube video of this guy saying it to the other guy, and the guy was like realizing what he was saying when he said it. And I was like, you didn't think about that? You didn't realize that? So Multiverse of Madness is an acronym for Mom. So maybe she loses her shit because she loses her kids. Because her kids aren't fucking real. The fact that they're aging themselves up, is that their superpower? Did she make them do that? What the fuck is that? No one's
think about that, Mom. Yeah.
I think she loses her shit because she loses them. I think she loses Vision and she loses Pietro. I think the end of this season ends with her alone.
You're setting it up for this to be a real dark ending.
Well, that's the thing. This show started so light and goofy and corny, and it's going to well, reality. Yeah, that's the fun. That's the fun little kicker in this mix up here. But it comes in slowly, and it's been creeping in, and it's been this like really great. Some like one of the one of the reviews that I read was like the comedy turned horror, like show. Like that's what the show is kind of transitioning into. And if it ends very dark, then that kind of sets up the palate cleanser that is the buddy cop situation of Falcon versus the Winter Soldier, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And then it leads into what we're supposed to see as our first horror-themed Marvel
That's
movie.
right. I completely forgot that they said that. And
that's super exciting.
all right, so am I going crazy? Am I just imagining this right now with my like nerd boner inside of myself? But is Sam Raimi directing this movie?
Correct.
Dude.
You're absolutely correct.
All right. Fucking writing's on the wall, bro.
Yeah.
This is I'm
very excited.
All right,
very excited for that movie.
I'm gonna get real close to the microphone. What if Sam Raimi directs the season finale of this show? Oh my god!
Oh man, that'd be incredible.
Because he's so good. If anybody's never heard of Sam Raimi, he's the director of Evil Dead, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Evil Dead 2, one of the funniest horror movies of all time. Army of Darkness, one of the funniest movies of all time. And then the Spider-Man trilogy. Maybe you've heard of it. Maybe a Hero Can Save Us. I'm not going to allow down away. So, and then he went on to make a bunch of other stuff that like nobody cared about anymore. But he is so good. One of my favorite things to reference for Sam Raimi when people are like, why do I care about this character? Watch the Dr. Octopus moment when he becomes Dr. Octopus. The sound editing, the horror aspect of that moment in Spider-Man 2, because Spider-Man 2 is not a horror movie, and
like
this
ballet.
sequence,
that sequence is a ballet.
It's so fucking classic Sam Raimi.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Now with that,
completely
let's leave
forgot
that
about that. Yeah,
for next time.
No, I'm too excited.
But no. Hey,
hell yeah,
love the conversation.
Yeah, man.
What do you got going on this week?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm in quasi preparation for this show, but also because I'm not really watching anything super engaging right now. I've been trying to watch stuff a little like light, like I've been watching The Ranch on Netflix with Ashton Kutcher. Don't worry about it. I've never seen it before. Shut up. Anyways, I've been watching the X-Men comic books or cartoon series from when I was a kid, because that fucking opening sequence is the best. Like, I love that show when I was a kid, but I never watched all of it. And I'm really realizing that show goes deep, bro. Oh my god. Like as a kid, I knew who Strife and Omega Red and Mr. Sinister were, and now as an adult, I realize I'm just making shit up when I say that, because no one's ever heard of those characters. Like, Strife is fucking Jean Grey and Cyclops' son. Like, what the fuck? And then I'm like learning stuff about how in the cartoon series, Rogue gets her powers from fucking draining Captain Marvel. And she even says, she was like, I have Captain Marvel's powers. And I was like, oh shit, that's where she got the power of flight. I didn't know that. It's super cool. I'm like season 3. I don't remember how many seasons, like 7 or 8 seasons. But dude, that show, as poorly animated, poorly voice acted, and poorly written as that show is, it's just so fucking cool with the sheer number of characters that it throw at you in every episode. In every episode, you're like, who the fuck is that? Oh shit, okay, that's that guy. Like, one of the characters is head of this like quasi-fascist Nazi type organization that's anti-mutant called the Friends of Humanity, and his last name I've already forgotten. But at the end of that whole thing, because he keeps like having them like, yeah, mutants are bad, and like showing up and like doing stuff, and you're like, God, these guys are really fucking annoying. Like, I really want them to get iced. And the guy organizing them to storm the Capitol is Donald Trump. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Sorry, I get a little mixed up there. So the guy organizing them, Wolverine sniffs him out literally and goes in there and pretends to be like a mutant hater, and then he calls him out. He's like, "Hey, I know who you are," and everyone's like, "What's he talking about, man?" And he holds up this like, he gets them to pull up this, what's it called? It had Tupac on the stage. Hologram.
Yeah.
This like hologram of Sabretooth, and it's a voiceover of Charles Xavier explaining who Sabretooth was, and he like loses his shit. He's like, no, and everybody's like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? It's a hologram. Turns out that's his dad. Sabretooth's this guy's dad. And that's why he's so anti-mutant, is because he like resents being Sabretooth's son. Dude, what
so
the
cheesy, so
fuck?
crazy,
So corny. So I've been watching that, and then I'm also reading the Avengers versus X-Men story, and that is all tied up in the Phoenix Force. So Hope Summers is Jean Grey and Cyclops' daughter, and she is like she's literally billed as the mutant messiah. She's the savior of mutant kind. She is from the future, and Cable brought her to the past because Cable is protecting. He's from the future. He's a time traveler. He's also in Deadpool 2. He's fucking great. And she saves mutant kind, because in the future where Cable's from, mutants literally die out. And so she's in the present, and she's there. She like robs mutants' abilities, not in like the rogue way, but in like the very literal, like, if I'm around you, I can use your power on you. I can't just become Colossus, but I can use Colossus' power on Colossus. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a very weird, specific thing. It's very convenient. But the Phoenix Force is tearing across the galaxy, literally obliterating planets to get to her. And so, like, at the beginning of the comic, Nova, who's like a really, really powerful character, and we haven't seen in the movies yet, is on a planet, and he's like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And the guy that like rules the planet is like, no, I control this planet, fuck this, I'm not leaving, like, I am this planet, fuck you. And he's like, all right, well, I'm out. And he leaves, and he's like, what's going on? And this thing comes across and like just obliterates the whole planet, and he's like, oh shit. And he's dead, he's gone. So it's really, really, this huge threat is coming. And so Captain America, Iron Man, and all them find Nova, and he's like, oh, the Phoenix Force is coming, and we need to be ready for this. So Captain America sends like half the Avengers into space to like stop it. Not happening. Like, some of the most powerful like Avengers of all time are just getting wiped out by this thing, because it's on his way. So Scott is Hope's dad, and he's trying to teach her, because he wants to believe that she is going to save everyone. And she's like, if the Phoenix Force is coming, let it fucking come. I got this. This is what I'm made for. Like, let me do this. And stop trying to protect me. That whole teenage rebellion thing, because she's like a teenager. And so there's this argument of Scott trying to protect Hope, and Captain America being like, dude, like, we need to move her. We need to protect. We need to isolate her. We need to do something. We need to protect humankind, like all of the world. This is after House of M. So Scott's like, no, dude, she could be the rebirth of mutants. Yeah. Like, mutants are pretty much non-existent anymore. And so there's this huge war, and it's extremely Civil War-esque. And it's like, everyone on both sides are like, dude, what's funny is everybody's like, the fuck is Cyclops' problem? Like, he's being a dick. And it's so funny because Wolverine's on the Avenger side, because he was an Avenger up until this point. And he's like, I've been trying to tell you guys this the whole time, because he's like, he's an asshole. Everybody doesn't realize that already. So it's really funny. I'm only like partly way into it, but I already see this is the thing that I have been wanting to see happen.
Correct.
I want to see mutants just as much as you do, but I want to see it to what end? It has to build to Avengers versus X-Men. And so I think they need to introduce mutants, use the time after that to rebuild the Avengers, and then have that be.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
And that would be giving it justice and doing it right.
Dude, it has to happen. I'm so pumped, man. I really appreciate you fucking letting me like nerd the fuck out, because I've been having this cooped up for a long time.
I've enjoyed the conversation. I am a huge antique collector, and with that are all the old comics that fall into that category now. And so I have boxes full, and actually what's crazy is when I was going through some of those things,
oh my god,
I found 10 to 12 different comics on Wanda Vision specifically, so that's what I want to be doing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I want to be going through
sick.
that. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. So hopefully you've got some insight coming up when we watch this, because there will be another episode probably before we talk again. And I'm hoping that the next... So where we are in the timeline is we have just finished the 80s, so there would be a 90s episode, and I'm assuming that might be the last like period piece episode.
Yes,
because it would be like a Full House. It would be a Full House situation.
Well,
and that plays into the that has to be the Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Like they have to happen at the same time, because I don't think they would do.
I see that happening.
You don't have an iconic thing after that.
You don't think that you think 90s is gonna be the cutoff? I'm thinking
what
we're
the
gonna
fuck?
get like a 2000.
2000s what fucking what
just
show?
A fun like internet. The tech part of it. They could do something really fun with technology and the growth of the internet.
Like a nerdy thing?
Phones. Yeah, something really nerdy and tasteful.
Like an iCarly situation? Like
maybe build up Agnes.
like a Hannah Montana situation?
Reveal, you know? Before we get into just...
Does Miley Cyrus show up? I don't know. Yeah, I just
wouldn't mind
can't...
this version of Miley Cyrus. She's more old school.
Sure. I don't know. I was thinking about this recently. I was like, how far do they do?
Yeah.
Do they do this stuff? People were trying to say that this last episode was 80s/90s. No, I think it was pretty solidly 80s, especially when Quicksilver showed up. I appreciated that, because I was like, all right, cool. What he's wearing right now,
that solidifies.
Yeah, that's so like having it 90s, having it big puffy dumb shirts and stuff like that, having it Friends / like Full House type situation. I don't see anything after that.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine there being any type of iconic motif enough for them to ape, other than maybe like a Malcolm in the Middle type situation. But even then, like, I don't fucking know.
We will see.
All right,
man,
bro.
I have enjoyed this a ton.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yes, sir. We are so early on in this that I have no thing to tell you to go check out to find us, people. But don't worry, if you're listening to this, you have found something, and just stick with it.
Give us a shot. We won't let you down.
Absolutely.
All right.